Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to the Grove Church this morning. If you're here live with us in person or if you're online, thanks for coming to worship with us this morning. My name is Brad Alexander. I'm the Connections Pastor here. I want to give you a warm welcome. Thanks for coming in out of the cold to hang out with us and worship today. If you're newer to the church, just one place that I want to point you to that you can sign up just to get our emails or find out more information about us is our website. It's thegrovechurch.org/connect. That's where you can go to just get connected with us and take any next steps that you might want to. But for this morning, we're going to kick off here in just a second with some song. If you want to stand up or turn around, just wave or fist bump in the air, or at home, just drop us a comment, say, hey, good morning. We're going to start singing here in just a second.
Heaven's bound creations, His pride and adoration, treasures woven by His love. His careful hands, they hold us safe within His promise of calling and of destiny. We're heaven's bound creations, His pride and adoration, treasures woven by His love. His careful hands, they hold us safe within His promise of calling and of destiny. And I will sing of all You've done, and I'll remember how far You've carried me from beginning until the end. You are faithful, faithful to the end. A father's heart that's for me, a never-ending story, a love that's always chasing me. His kindness so overwhelming, and hope for me unending. He's never given up on me. And I will sing of all You've done, and I'll remember how far You carried me from beginning until the end. You are faithful, faithful to the end. I will sing of all You've done, and I'll remember how far You've carried me from beginning until the end. You are faithful, faithful to the end, until the end.
your thoughts, your ways, your mystery. Too deep for words, my spirit burns to worship you. Your light, your light, your light in my your heart, your plans, your will for me. There's nothing else my soul desires than more of you. Your light, your light, your light in my Take my heart, take my soul, take my mind, and I will give my thoughts, give my all, give my life to follow you. Take my hands, take my breath, take my dreams, and I will lift my eyes, lift my faith, lift my voice and worship you. Take my heart, take my soul, take my mind, and I will give my thoughts, give my all, give my life to follow you. Take my hands, take my breath, take my dreams, and I will lift my eyes, lift my faith, lift my voice and worship you. Oh yeah, we worship. Oh yes, we worship you. We worship you. My God, my closest friend, I need your love more than my lungs need oxygen.
Jesus, we thank you for your love. We thank you for your sacrifice that you gave for us. Lord, I ask that you would reach into our hearts and purge us of the things that need to be purged. Rid us of those things that are not reflective of you. And may we choose to listen to your voice and not our own. That you would be louder than anything else in our head. We are weak, but you are strong. You are gracious. You're forgiving. Help us to be like you. Thank you for those things. Thank you for loving us and changing us to be like you. Help us to receive the word today, and may we walk out of these doors, or may we walk out of our homes different than when we entered them. It's in your name I pray and I ask these things. Amen. You can go ahead and have a seat.
Hey, good morning. Hey, if you're new here, joining us online, we're really glad that you're here. I'm Charlie, the lead pastor, and just glad that all of you are worshiping with us, whether it's in the room, you're streaming with us live, or you're watching us later. Really glad that you are with us, and we are week 2 into our series on marriage and relationships. And as always, I start doing one of these series and just kind of countless stories and illustrations from my own marriage and from couples that we have spent time with to start popping into my mind. And there's 2 in particular that kind of hit me for this week. And as a disclaimer, I just want to make sure we guys clear. I'm not going to tell any stories about anybody that you know, and I'm not going to tell any stories about you or hide them. So it's like if I say, and it's this couple that I did pre-marriage counseling with, and you're going to be like, did you say that? Like, it's not you, it's none of you, so just turn off your curiosity meter. That'd be great. It was when I first moved here, and it was one of the first couples that I'd had the opportunity to marry. And, we're doing pre-marriage counseling with them. They were meeting me at the old church building, and I don't exactly remember what topic I had in mind for that day, but as soon as they walked in, it took me about 15 seconds to realize I didn't need to bring a topic up. They brought the topic with them. There was just a lot of stress, and you could tell that they were really upset with each other. And so, you just kind of start with, hey, so what's up? Just to try to get it out of them. And he goes, man, you will not believe it. She's just being ridiculous. She's being completely ridiculous. There's this movie that we both really like, and I saw it on sale, the DVD, and I bought it, and she's freaking out about it. And I'm like, okay. And as always, you're not going to get the entire story from, just talking to one person. It's like, so what would you say is going on? He's like, oh yeah, he bought the DVD. Yeah, I'm mad about it. Because you know why? Now we have 0 money for groceries. Oh. I'm like, dude, that's a little different than I just wanted to buy a movie. Like if you spent your food money on it. And so now we're just having this conversation, right? And we'll talk a little bit more. I'm just going to kind of preview both these stories, talk a little bit more, kind of get into the heart of the message, kind of the core of these struggles. And so there's just, this couple, they're just getting ready to start out. They don't have very much money, and money is already a big deal. There's also another time, this is before we lived here. It's a couple they were struggling, and they called and asked us to come over. Could we come over to their house and just kind of talk to them? They were just struggling. And their home was $1 million home, and based on what we knew of this couple, we just knew, you would just, if they had money problems, they didn't have what we would consider money problems. They didn't have the kind of money problems where if they wanted something, they couldn't buy it. They didn't have anything like that. I mean, it was they were very well off, had plenty of resources, and just did whatever they wanted. But it became pretty apparent just even a few minutes into it, like, well, so what's going on? And again, it was all about money. They were fighting about money. Her attitude towards money and the way that she perceived him, and it was just a constant conflict. Again, it was not about having enough. It wasn't about being in debt or anything like that. But here they are having this huge conflict about money. And I'll preview this a little bit. We'll talk about it a little bit more in depth. Essentially, she made more money than him, and she made sure he knew that all of the time, and essentially just used it as a weapon against him. And it was very problematic. And so, again, we'll talk about both these stories here a little bit, but I just kind of preview them both for you, because here it is, a couple who has no money, and money is a huge issue between them. Here's a couple that had more than enough money, and it was a huge issue between them. Money being at the core, being a core divider, a core struggle in marriage, has nothing to do with the quantity of money that you have. You cannot say, well, we don't have enough money to fight about. Or you can't say, oh, we got all the money we need. Of course we're not going to fight about it. It does not matter how much money that you have. Marriage after marriage after marriage, one of the top things that marriages fight about, one of the top reasons why marriage and families break up, is over money. And if you don't know, if you weren't here last week, essentially that's kind of how we decided to make this series. I just did some research and tried to find what were like the top 5 reasons why marriages split up. And so let's just do a series on all of those weeks. Last week we talked about how extended family stress is one of the top reasons. It was a surprising one for me. If there's anything surprising about money being on the list, it's like I would have told you, I was absolutely convinced that it would have been number 1. Absolutely would have been number 1. Our experience has been that way with families that we've interacted with. I would have said it was number 1, but number 1, this is a little preview for next week, number 1 on almost all of these lists is infidelity. And I still want to suggest that I'm right. I'm going to preview this here for just a little bit of next week for you. I still want to suggest I'm right, because infidelity typically is a symptom of whatever the core problem was. And it's not really, it's the straw. It's not the thing that caused the problem. So we are going to talk about that next week. I want you to kind of be clear. For those of you who are bringing your kids, nothing's inappropriate is going to be said, but we will touch on sex somewhat. But infidelity, by and large, is not necessarily completely a sex problem. There's a lot more going on there. But that is the topic that we're going to be talking about next week, and I just want to make sure everybody knows that. But for right now, we're talking about money. And again, what I would believe is definitely, at a minimum, it is a top 2 cause of stress and divorce and problems in marriage. And last week, we were looking at Genesis chapter 2, when God brings Adam and Eve together, and he talks about, that you leave your father and mother, and they come together and they become one. I'm not going to look at Genesis chapter 2 today, but essentially it's going to be the same passage. I'm going to be looking at a passage in Matthew where Jesus is just essentially quoting that passage in Genesis chapter 2. Because the Pharisees here, these kind of religious antagonists to Jesus, are always trying to trap him with questions. And their question was, is it okay to divorce your wife? Is it ever okay to divorce your wife? And they're trying to trap him here, because if he says, no, it's never okay, they can be like, well, Moses said that there were some, and you look at Leviticus, there are some reasons. Or, if he says, oh, sure, I guess there's somebody like, well, you don't think, God said marriage is, it's sacred. So now they thought they could trap him, which of course he never can, because he's Jesus. And they ask him this question, this answer in Matthew chapter 19, verse 4. Haven't you read, he replied, that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female, and said, for this reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. I'll do a quick little poll here in the room. How many people during your wedding, at some point the pastor said, therefore what God has joined together, let no one separate? Oh, anybody I married, I said it. I thought everybody said it. Oh, maybe they said asunder? Who's got asunder? Tear asunder. I don't know what the word means. I guess it means separate. So Jesus is saying here, marriage is sacred. And there's something you don't understand about marriage. This is not just simply some contract that two people make with each other that can be broken if there's some sort of problem. He says God made them male and female, and he brought them together. And he says when God puts them together, it says that they become one. And the physical act of sex is kind of representative of that. I mean, it's the coming together to become one thing. So you're not now two people, you're one family, you're one couple, you're one team. And once God has put something together, you can't separate that. And I think that there is a mentality here that I think that we miss out on. And again, there's another message out there somewhere where we could talk about how oneness and losing your own identity in the context of a relationship is a problem. We could talk about that. We'll talk about that a different day. But right now we're going to talk about the struggle that I think that a lot of couples have where they really are, they're just roommates. They're just roommates. They're just partners. But they don't really view themselves as one team. It's us. It's us. There's me and there's you. There's me and there's you. And sometimes we have to make decisions, I guess. But what God is talking about here, what Jesus is talking about here is that, man, when God brings you together, you become one. And so we talked about this a little bit last week with our extended families and how they can kind of pull on that oneness and they don't want us to leave and start this new thing. But there are a lot of other things that can kind of drive this wedge and keep us from really talking about we and us and being one team, and money is one of them. And the biggest thing, the most important thing that I feel like I'm going to say today is this first idea. If we are going to make sure that we are going to be we're going to be a team, and we're not going to let money be a wedge that kind of comes between us. And one thing I want to make sure we all understand is this, that when we think about money in the context of marriage and family, there is only our money. Our money. We have one money. There's all of this money, and we put it all together, and all of this money together, it's just one money. It's money, and it's our money. There's not your money and my money. There's not the money I make, and that's my money, and there's the money that you make, and that's your money. There's only our money, and whoever's name is on the check is irrelevant. And we put the money that I make and the money that you make, and we put it together, and it becomes our money. And that's all that there is. Only our money. Because that was the problem with this wealthy family. She viewed money in terms of my money. This is my money, and I make a lot of money. And in a normal world, the money that he made would also have been a lot of money, but by comparison, it was not. And so she had her money, and he had his money, and she had more money. And so since she had more money, that meant that she got a greater vote. That meant she was more important, and that meant he wasn't quite up to snuff. He wasn't quite good enough. He wasn't quite holding his own. And so she used this as a club on him all the time. How come you don't make more money? I make all this money, and you don't make enough money. And she would beat him with this. And that is a very common idea. A very common idea that in a couple, I mean, I guess mathematically it would be almost impossible for the couple to make the exact same amount of money. But very often within a couple, one person will make significantly more. And there becomes this attitude that happens. It's like that the person who makes the most money is in charge of the money because the money is theirs. I earned this money, so I decide, or at least I get to mostly decide what I do with this money. I mean, I guess you can give some input, but you make you bring in 30%, so your vote counts 30%. If your vote counts 30% and one person counts 70%, there's only two people voting, you lose all the time. Because again, it's about me versus you. And it's not about our. And that is one of the most destructive ideas in marriage, because now money is a competition. And now we determine someone's value within the team, within the couple, based on the amount of money that they bring in. And now our values are driven by who can generate the most money. And I have to make sure that I can take care of myself, because it's very clear that they view their money as theirs. And if I'm ever going to be independent, I can't trust this person. I have to learn to be independent. And it becomes this small wedge, becomes a big wedge, and inside that wedge becomes this time bomb where everything will eventually blow up. Now, that's not to say that you can't have separate checking accounts for different reasons. And that's certainly not to say that you cannot have some discretionary money that is yours. But the question is, you have money, and we decide what each one of us can use as discretionary money. I mean, obviously, if you both have a job, or one of you has a job, and you may get a bonus or whatever, and you're like, oh, this is my bonus. Or you get Christmas money or whatever. Or me, a 49-year-old who still gets birthday money from his mommy. Oh, my mommy, hey, look, it's my birthday. My mommy sent me some birthday money. Like, I'm going to go buy something special with my mommy's money, right? And it's really sweet. It's sweet. But that's certainly my money. Well, that depends. And that depends on what we agree upon as a team. Are we in a season where we can even have discretionary money? If we decide that we don't have enough money for any money to be discretionary, then even bonuses and gifts and those kind of things they kind of get lumped into the cause of whatever's going on to make sure that we can pay bills, to overcome this debt, to meet this problem or whatever. But we decide that. And if we decide that this money is for your discretionary spending, then great. But once we start feeling like we have some claim to make, this is mine, and because it's mine, you don't get to speak into it. We have lost the picture of what marriage is, and we are entering into this idea that money will then become a wedge that becomes between us. And so again, I think it is incredibly important that we begin to think about money in this way, and we think about money together collectively as a team. And if I were just going to broaden that out a little bit, man, I just want to say you cannot use first-person plural pronouns enough. When we talk about money, we only talk about what is ours. It is us and we and our and ours. Not you, not me, not mine, not yours. Ours, we have to be a team. And so in addition to just kind of this big picture idea that there's only our money, the next thing I would say is that we need to make sure that we are on the same page. We are on the same page. We are together in agreement about the what's, whys, and hows of how we deal with money. Well, I like to save. She likes to spend. Oh, he doesn't really think that's that big a deal, but I really hate it. She likes to give. I don't know why she's all into that, but I guess I'll let her do it. I mean, do we have a collective idea about how it is we manage our money? And that we are completely and totally on the same page about this. And one of the primary ways that this has come up historically for Heidi and I, as we've observed a lot of couples who have money problems in their marriage, one of the biggest things that seems to always come up is who is the one that is in charge of managing the finances. When the bills come in, who pays them? If there's some challenging situation that you're going through, where you're like, okay, we got to move money around, we got to do this, okay, we got to pay this debt down, we got this unexpected bill. How are we going to handle that? Who is in charge of that? When the bills come in, when things need to be deposited, when checks need to be sent, when we need to get online and pay all the bills, who's in charge of that? And here's the next question. Is the person who is in charge of that, do they want to be? Because way more often than not, the person who is in charge of managing the finances is there by default. Because one of them, typically the dude, is like, oh man, I'm not good at anything. I'm an idiot. I can barely keep up with myself. I can't. She's real smart and good, and she can remember things, and so she's in charge. And there's just enough self-deprecation in there, and just enough flattery where it makes it sound like it's a good. Well, I'm kind of dumb, and she's real smart. So we do it because she's smart. Well, that's not what's going on there. It is just pure abdication. I don't want anything to do with this. Oh, no, she's the one that's got all the opinions. She's always the one that's getting all bent out of shape if we don't pay the electric bill. And then it's like, so I think if you're going to have all these opinions about paying bills on time, then you should be the one that has to do it. And then, because there's not some great team decision that's made here, where we have decided that the best process for us in managing our bills and managing our monies is this, then what tends to happen is it is put upon someone and they feel alone and unsupported. And it causes a huge conflict. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, but one day. One day you will find yourself in our living room talking about it, talking with a counselor, talking with a friend, talking with someone else. And it comes down to we don't agree on what our plan needs to be for managing our money. And so if there's a piece of practical advice that I would like to give, it would be this simple. If you are the one who is not in charge of paying the bills, some point in the next couple of days, go to the person who is and say, do you feel good about this? And you will get one of three answers. No. Sort of. I wish you were more involved, though. Or, I don't know what he was ranting about. And the third answer is fine. Maybe it's working out great for you guys. But more times than not, unfortunately, a lot of times it's just not. And at a minimum, what we need is that, especially when finances can be challenging or tight, we're going through a difficult situation, there needs to be some unity that we together are tackling this problem. And we're not leaving one person who may or may not even want to be doing it at all in charge of the load and the stress of it. But in addition to that, I mean, there's just, are we unified in how we view debt? Car debt versus house debt versus credit card debt, savings, short-term savings, long-term savings. Have we talked about that, and we collectively have a team plan for how we manage finances? And there's this other challenge that always seems to come up, and Heidi and I have just kind of over time learned to describe this a certain way, where for every couple, there is an amount of money that is a stressful amount of money. And like, for example, with the poor couple that was about to get married, the number was $15. $15 was stressful. If you spend $15 just on whatever, it becomes a problem in our family, in our finances, and between us. And he didn't know that, but we talked about it. $15 is a big deal. For many of us, that may not be a big deal. Somebody comes home from Walmart, or they went out to lunch with a friend or whatever, and they spend $15 that you aren't necessarily planning on spending. You're not going to get mad about it. It's like, hey, look what I got, you know. An Amazon package comes in, and it's like it's a pair of shoes, and how much was that? It was like $30. Oh, cool. And $30 isn't a big deal. There's a time in our life where we had a rule that if you couldn't eat it, you can't buy it. And if the thing that you're buying, if the food you're buying is not rice or beans, then I've got questions about that too. We had no money, and so there was no such thing as discretionary spending. So the amount of wasteful spending that would have caused stress was any amount. And obviously, in the 20 plus years since then, that number has changed. It's gone up and down. There were times when there was no such thing as discretionary spending because we owned an extra house that we didn't want to own. And this is a long story for some of you who weren't around, but the house that we moved out of when we moved here, we owned for an extra 9 years afterwards. And all discretionary, there's no such thing as discretionary money. There was just money that went for that house to keep trying to keep that thing going. But, you know, over time, depending on the amount of money that you have and kind of your family situation, you can tolerate an Amazon package a week, 2 Amazon packages a week. All of the Amazon packages, like sometimes, like you know, it's like okay. When the UPS guy just laughs when he comes to your house, eventually the guy's like, okay, we need to have a conversation about something here, guys, and we got adult daughters too, and I got to bring everybody together. What are we doing here? But even with us at this place we're at right now, I mean, if I came home with this really large television, like, what's that? It's a new TV. It was a great deal. How much was it? $2,000. Like, and now we're fighting. There's always an amount of money. Do you know what that is, and are you in agreement on it? You know, we need to make sure that we're clear because we don't want this to be a wedge issue. One of the challenges for us that tends to happen is, so I'm the one who typically pays the bills, and you know, and Heidi, she doesn't particularly care. She's not really. She just hates numbers. I was a math guy. We talked about it. It just seems for a lot of reasons why it works out for us. But every now and then, Heidi will have some question or concern or something, and she'll come to me with it, and we'll fight about it because I spend most of my life. She doesn't care. She doesn't like it. She doesn't want to talk about it. So when it does come, it feels like she's trying to fight me. What is this bill? And I'm like, what do you mean, what bill? And like I take it as a like an attack, like a challenge. And neither one of us are blameless here. You know, one of us could probably ask our question better, and one of us could just calm down a little bit and not be threatened all the time, right? But that was me. That was the last one, right? That was me. That was okay. You guys, I don't want the laugh line about who needs to change to be about laughing at my wife, or we're all in trouble, just me. And I get this way because you just get really defensive about it. And so we have to kind of learn this rhythm. How much information does my wife need or want on a regular basis about the ins and outs of our finances and what we're doing? And what is enough information? What's so much that it just kind of, it's overwhelming to her because it's too much spreadsheets? And how much of it is, you know, it seems to her like maybe I'm trying to hide something. So it's important for us to have a good amount of good conversational flow to continue to make sure we can't just say we're on the same page financially and then 3 years from now we just kind of are just continuing to go. We have to make sure that we're having good, regular conversations to make sure that we continue to be on the same page. So again, to keep our unity, we need to make sure that we only talk about our money. We need to make sure that we are on the same page. And ultimately, we need to make sure that we are on the right page. I mean, you can be on the same page and say, you know what, credit card debt's really not that big a deal at all. $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, as long as you make the minimum payment, you're good, right? I know this is probably more expensive a car than we can afford, but with the way the lease payments work, we'd be dumb not to do that. I mean, there's just some things out there that's like, I know our kids are going to go to college someday, but I'm sure they'll have it all figured out by the time our kids are old enough, and so we don't really need to worry about it. Retirement, schmarment. I mean, we're probably, I don't know, we'll probably die before we retire anyway. I mean, there's all these things that are really important to good financial management, and if you are both on the same page and it's the wrong page, it's eventually going to be a problem. Eventually, you can be as united as you want in bad debt, and bad debt's going to bite you. You can be as unified as you want about not saving for emergencies and not saving for the future, but eventually that's going to bite you. Eventually, the bad times are going to happen and the unexpected thing is going to happen. And even if you are a team, if your team is heading the wrong way, it's going to be a problem. And I was talking to a couple the other day. I was, how are you doing? And he said, man, I feel like we're doing really, really well, but I just changed jobs and we don't have much money coming in. And I didn't really need to hear any more than that. We talked about it. But man, all it takes, everything else in your marriage can be good. But by no fault of anyone's, finances are tight. And it's just a problem. It just causes anxiety and fear. But the more that we can agree that we are a team in this is our money, and we're on the same page, and we're going to follow God's plan for this. No matter what ups and downs of money stress can come at us, it doesn't come between us. It still can be a challenge for us, but it's not a challenge between us. And if you've been at the Grove for even just more than a few months, then you've heard me give a handful of talks on money. If you've been here the whole 10 plus years that we've been here, you've probably heard me give 50 talks about money. We talk about it a lot because it's crazy important. I don't necessarily want to rehearse all of that, but I just want to remind you of one thing that we talked about last fall. There's two different ideas out there about money. One is I'm going to spend everything that we want, and if there's money left over, well, maybe we'll try to save for an emergency, and then if there's money left over, we'll save for the future, and if there's money left over, we'll give that to God. But what God says, He talks about us coming in a completely different direction, that we give first. We save for the future next. We save for emergencies next, and we spend what's left over from that. And I'm telling you, through experience, our own experience, and the experience of countless other couples, you want to be on the right page, get on that page together. And then when the inevitable stressors with finances come up, we're a team with a plan, with God's plan. And I want to say this because, again, it has been such a huge challenge for so many people. I don't want you to walk out of here thinking that somehow that this is just something you can kind of psych yourself up for and then just fix pretty easily. This is a spiritual problem, and it requires us to stay connected to God. It is the gospel, it is the love of Jesus that comes in us through accepting Him, through the gospel that allows us to be able to live on God's page. And when we allow His Spirit to come in and transform us from the inside, then we have the strength, the courage to do the things that God has called us to. So let's stay connected to God. Let the Spirit do His work, and then let's have some conversations. Just have some simple. Let's again some simple outlines, some simple applications. Make a commitment that you're not ever going to use me, mine, and yours when you're talking about money. 2, let's have a conversation this week between the person who does the finances and the person who doesn't about whether or not we feel like what we're doing is working. And 3, do you feel like we're on the same page with how we spend? And do you think that page is God's page? Let's have a handful of smaller, awkward conversations to keep us from having to have the bigger ones later. Let me pray. God, money issues, God, they can be so destructive. And God, I just know from experience that the idea of initiating a conversation about it just stresses me out to even think about it. When all the conversations about money you've ever had have gone bad, why would you want to have another one? And so, God, we need courage. We need humility. We need patience. We need grace. And God, that only comes from your Spirit. So I pray that your Spirit would give that to us. To have the courage to have the conversations we need to have the courage to make the changes that we need to make. So that, God, that money and money issues can be something that unites us, be the kind of thing that we can draw strength from rather than divide us. And God, none of that is possible without your Son. And it's in his name that we pray. Amen.
What a Savior, my Redeemer, friend of sinners, one like me. Oh, what kindness, suffered violence, healed my blindness, and set me free. Oh, what grace I found in you, my Jesus, that my soul should entertain your greatness. And should this life hold nothing but my Savior, I will praise you always.
Heaven's glory, clothed in mercy, knew my story, yet took my end. Oh, what freedom, hope like heaven, now forgiven, I will rise again. Oh, what grace
I found in you, my Jesus, that my soul should entertain your greatness. Should this life hold nothing but my Savior, I will praise you always. Oh, what grace I found in you, my Jesus, that my soul should entertain your greatness. Should this life hold nothing but my Savior, I will praise you always. I will praise you always. Should this life I live hold nothing but the cross where Jesus took my shame, that with arms stretched wide and my head held high, that every breath will sing again. Should this life I live hold nothing but the cross where Jesus took my shame, with arms stretched wide, and my head held high, my every breath will sing again. To this life I live, oh, nothing but the cross where Jesus took my shame. With arms stretched wide, and my head held high, my every breath will sing again. Oh, what grace I found in you, my Jesus, that my soul should entertain your greatness. Should this life hold nothing but my Savior, I will praise you always. Oh, what grace I found in you, my Jesus, that my soul should entertain your greatness. Should this life hold nothing but my Savior, I will praise you always. I will praise you always. I will praise you always.
Oh, the weight of his glory. Oh, the wonder of his grace, the power of salvation. Oh, that pulled me from the grave. This hope is not empty. And forever he will reign, and he won't be put to shame. And oh, my soul, sing to the God of the ages, sing to the Lord of creation, sing his praise again. And oh, my soul, sing like the heavens are waiting, roar like an army of angels, sing his praise again. From the moment of rescue, I have never been the same. When his love took me captive, and my sin was washed away, now I stand here forgiven, and I know that I am saved, and I won't be put to shame. And oh, my soul, sing to the God of the ages, sing to the Lord of creation, sing his praise again. And oh, my soul, sing like the heavens are waiting, roar like an army of angels, sing his praise again. And remember how our God has never failed us. Remember that his name will make a way, he'll make a way from the cross to the grave. He is risen and he reigns. Praise the Lord and sing his praise again. Oh, now remember how our God has never failed us. Remember that His name will make a way. He'll make a way from the cross to the grave. He is risen and He reigns. Oh, praise the Lord and sing His praise again. Oh, my soul, sing to the God of the ages. Sing to the Lord of creation. Sing His praise again. And oh, my soul, sing like the heavens are waiting. Roar like the army of angels. Sing His praise again. And oh, my soul, sing to the God of the ages. Sing to the Lord of creation. Sing His praise again. And oh, my soul, sing like the heavens are waiting. Roar like the army of angels. Sing His praise again. We sing His praise again. Oh, sing His praise again. Oh, sing His praise again. Oh, sing His praise again. Oh,
Lord, thank you for giving us hope and joy in you. Thank you for loving us where we are, for calling us to something higher. Lord, even in the middle of something that's neutral as it is like money, that our heart and our sin can grab onto that and wrestle with it, that the enemy can use it as something to divide us. That in the middle of that, Lord, you, by your sovereignty and by your power and by your goodness and mercy, God, you don't let it stay that way, that you shine your light into those dark cracks where we hold on to things because you want our good, our joy to be in you, for the redemption that comes in that, for the healing, and just the pure joy that comes in living in the light and seeing you redeem things that have hurt or split us, that we've just fumbled on. So God, thank you for that. Thank you for Jesus who died on the cross to take what we deserved ourselves, our sin, to take the punishment for that, but also to raise 3 days later to give us hope and life in proof that you want us to live, and there is a way to live that glorifies you and that's just better. Thank you for that. Amen. You guys can have a seat. There's a couple announcements that I have for today. Thanks for coming again to worship with us online and here in person. Man, we're just all about really being real here at the church and getting connected and finding our way and finding relationships as best we can, even right now during COVID. And there's a couple of ways that you can do that. If you're newer to the church, if this is your first time coming or you've been coming for a few weeks, today, actually, we have a Connections class. It's called Connections 101. It's basically the first step in our membership process, but it doesn't mean you got to be a member. It's just really kicking the tires, trying to figure out, is this church a place that maybe I want to be, that we want to land long term? We've asked people to sign up for that, but if you're just showing up today and you think, hey, man, I really think I want to dig into that some more, we provide some lunch. There's a few extras that you can come. You can totally come and join us. It's just right afterwards. You can come see me in the back. And I can direct you the right way. If you are a lady in the church and you want to get connected and join in on something that's going on, just spiritually connect, you don't have a small group or something that you're meeting with right now, they're doing a virtual small group Wednesdays at 7. I know that we are all kind of tired of the virtual, but it's where we're at right now, trying to lead the way through. And so you can join in, get some spiritual encouragement, build some new relationships. And where you can find the information about that, if you're at home or if you're here with us, is go to our website, thegrovechurch.org/connect. That's thegrovechurch.org/connect. That's where you can find out information about the women's stuff, other events, things that we have going on. Or if you just want to get on our email list to be like, hey, I'd like to know what's going on so I can keep in touch. That's where you can fill out that form too and tell us that you're here, and we can keep you posted, okay? You guys be warm, be dismissed, enjoy any Super Bowl reveille you do on tonight, and then join us for Connections if you're coming. See you guys next week.